Hello and welcome to this RotaryCraft tutorial. I have divided this series into episodes instead of doing everything at once because this mod is quite big, there are a lot of machines and a lot to take in. So in this episode I will go through the basics to get started. I will go through the handbook and what machines you need to begin with, and I will do a quick demo at the end to demonstrate what I have gone through, but basically I will not go through any machine in this episode, so that will come in the next one. It all starts with the handbook that I'm holding. This book contains a lot, but I wouldn't go so far to say that it contains everything you need to know, because some things are not quite as well explained as you would want to get to understand the machine or the concept at once. The physics of this game and the power system is based on real-life physics. We have watts and kilowatts, we have Newton meters and radians per second. All these are well-established physics in real life, so it can be quite much to take in if you're not used to the mod at all, but everything comes down to real logic, so it shouldn't be that big of a problem. To begin with, we have this page. The handbook is your guide. There is no shortcut to understand this mod. You have to understand the handbook and you have to understand all the parts of force, torque, effect, and so on. But I will do what I can to help with that part. Before we go into this, it's much easier to explain when I have the machines up and running, so I will go through where to start. In this chest we have lava and blast furnaces. The basic material that you will need is steel, and you will get it from the blast furnace. The blast furnace works when it's heated up, place lava underneath. You can have a few, they're very easy to build or craft. Stone bricks and redstone, so you can do a few. Inside you will notice that now the temperature is rising. It has to be 600 degrees Celsius, and it will take me a while to get there, so I will load it and then explain what we will get. You need gunpowder and coal. You load the lower part with gunpowder and the upper slot with coal, and place your iron like that or like that. It doesn't matter, it will do everything for you. Once we reach 600 degrees we will start to get steel. So you could do this for everyone, and you can do one at a time, it doesn't really matter. After this step you will get steel. You will use the steel to build the work table. HSLA steel, to be more specific. This work table is the crafting table of RotaryCraft. You will build most of your machines in this one. Nothing strange or hard, just do it, I guess. Okay, now when we have cleared out that part, we know where to start. But what shall we build? We have to have engines for most of the machines. I suggest that you go through the book, you look it through so you know where you can find stuff. There are a lot of pages. Start with reading these pages: watts, newton meters, and radians per second. These are recurring in almost all machines that we will look at. The relevant physics is very relevant. The angular velocity is the radians per second. The higher the value, the quicker the rotation. And the torque is how much power we have in that angular velocity. And this is directly proportional to the effect that we have in the engine, watts, kilowatts. Alright, I will be more clear when we start. So let's take the most basic engine, I think. It's DC electric engine. Hold shift to get power data. It says power 1 kilowatt or 1024 watts. It has a 4 Newton meter torque and 256 radians per second in speed. And if we look it up in the handbook under power supplies, DC electric engine, we build it with steel and a shaft unit. It's also made from steel, and base panel is also from steel. It's the simplest engine, and all we need is a continuous redstone signal of any strength. That means a lever is fine. When we place it down like this, you will notice that red box. It will disappear. Red means that the power is output in that block. Green means the insert. It will be very clear when I show you this wood shaft. Green is input, red is output. When I place down the lever, the shaft is spinning. The engine is running, and that's the most, I guess it's the most basic function, the most basic engine. It's quite noisy, so I will turn this down really low. Yeah, much better. We can place a lot of wood shafts after each other. There is no power loss in them as I know of. Perhaps after a great distance, but in these short distances there are no power loss. But the only thing that we know here is what we know from here. 1 kilowatts of power, the torque and speed. We have tools to help us with that. Dynamometer is very handy when you begin with this mod. It will say exactly the power, the torque and the speed. Exactly what the tooltip said we would have. If I turn it off, it will shut down. We I have two other tools here that will help us. The screwdriver is used to rotate and modify our blocks. If I would have placed it incorrectly, I could use the screwdriver to rotate it in the correct position again. For example, if I would have been standing in this direction, it wouldn't have worked. Screwdriver, rotate, everything is fine. And as we can see over here, we still have 1.024 kilowatts, 4 Newton meters and 256 radians per second in the rotation. The angular transducer is a similar, well, it's a different tool. We can get the similar information as we get with a dynamometer. I right click on a block and it says that it is transmitting 1 kilowatts of power of effect at 256 radians per second and where it comes from. It can be good when you have issues and you're tracking down where the power comes from and what is wrong. Okay, that was the basic engine. Now we have one engine running. We can transfer the power to a distance. So it's time to move on. Gearboxes. They are specified with a ratio of 2:1, 4:1, up to 16:1. They are used to change the torque and speed. If I do a similar setup, or exactly the same setup, engine and a lever, I can place the dynamometer. Alright, we have 1 kilowatts of power. That's great. Now we take a gearbox. I can take just anything. I take the 2:1, 16:1 gearbox. As you notice, I won't go into detail about how to craft these things. You have NEI and the handbook to help you. I just think it's a waste of time to go through it. Alright, we place the gearbox. You can see the tooltip that it has a damage value and a lubricant value. This means that this gearbox, this unit, requires lubricant to not to break. I will demonstrate here that if I exchange it to a wood shaft and a dynamometer again, we have the same numbers as before. Now if I change the gearbox, you see that we have the speed is half and the torque was doubled. But as you see, damage is going up, we have no lubricant, so let's shut this down. We need lubricant for gearboxes. As soon as you don't have any lubricant, they will break, and you see the sparks happening. So let's place it again. Now everything is stopped. Place it, and we get some lubricants from my chest. Put it into the gearbox, and you see we have one bucket of lubricant inside. We have the specs of the gearbox, and we have almost always have this info shortcut to the handbook, how it works. Now we can try it again. It will use up some lubricant, but it's not braking. And now we see that the power is the same, but the torque and the speed has changed. The torque has doubled, but the speed is at half. The power is still the same. I can shut this down and I can place another gearbox. As soon as it has stopped. Let's see how this looks. This is a 16:1 gearbox, and we put some lubricant in it, and we'll see how this looks. Let's place this for demo. The power is still the same as we expected. The torque has gone up really high. It is now 16 times 8, and the speed is a 16th of 1/28. So now it's really slow, but much stronger in the rotation. You can see the difference in speed, even just by looking at it. Alright, that's after that logic we can remove, well, let's just move on. Power the same, torque and angular velocity, they follow each other. Now we're ready to move on to the next step. Now we have bevel gears and a shaft junction. These will be very handy when you are leading your, or not transmitting, but when you are leading your power elsewhere. So let's begin with the same thing. The shaft junction is just a split or a merge. It can be in two modes. If you look at it, it has cogs in one white and two black. The white can be either the output or the input, so we'll use the screwdriver to rotate it as we want it. This would mean that, or I want it to mean that the white is the input and we split the power in two pieces. But when you looked at the boxes, we have green, and red. So it's the opposite. Green is input and red is output. So in this mode it means that we have two inputs and one output. So I shift and right click, it will change to a green input and two red outputs. After this I can just right click without the screwdriver. I can right click the junction, and now here we can split the power even or not even. Uneven it's called, I think. I will do even because it's easiest to understand and explain. Oh, I want the dynamometer here first. So let's place that. Let's place the engine, and we do the lever again. One even. We have input and two outputs. Now we can place a dynamometer here and on this side. These are the same because we had it in 1-1 split. They are both at 512, 2 torque and 256 radians. When we compare that to the input, we have half of the power. I guess that makes sense because we split it in two. The torque is half, that follows the power. The speed is the same because, as we can see, they rotate in the same speed. So the speed is of course the same, but the power, and that means the torque, is split. You could also do this, we can also change this to be a merge if we just shut this down and we place a electric engine here and a lever, and now we need to shift right click the shaft junction to be 2 green and 1 red, and then rotate it like that. So we have input from here and input from here and output to here. It is in green, green, red. So now when we right click, we can't right click on it anymore. We can't change the ratio because the input, when you have it in this mode, has to be the same from both directions. So now when we turn this engine on, this must be changed to this. We have 1 kilowatt of input, torque and speed is the same as before. And when we turn this on as well, we have doubled the power and the torque, but the speed is the same. Okay, that was easy to understand, I hope. And now we go to the bevel gears. That was the last part of this section. As you can see, it's the same thing as a shaft, but in an angle. This would be very handy when you have, for example, when you do a junction and you still want both of the outputs to face the same direction. You will need this. This can be rotated in the same way as all the other machines, not all machines, but some of the machines. Right click on it with a screwdriver, you will get a lot of boxes and colored sides. Green and red are still the input and the output, and you have black or gray, purple, blue. You see an orange side on that, and if you right click on it without the screwdriver, you get this interface where you can set the input and the output. So if we want it to face this direction instead as an output, we want the gray to be output. So we just change output side to gray and it will jump to this side. If I want it to face up, I check with the screwdriver. Oh, blue is up. I right click and just change output side to up. Easy enough. And the same goes for here. If I now want it to come in from the bottom and out to this side, I can check. I want the purple to be output, and I know that the input should be light blue, like that. If I now place a dynamometer on this side, I still have the same power, torque and speed, so no loss in the bevel gears. Alright, that takes us to the last chest. This is my demo chest, and as you can see there are a lot of stuff in here. I will build this off cam and I will be right back to explain what I have done. But I won't go into very much in detail because that will be in a later episode. Alright, be right back. Okay, I have prepared a small or a rather big setup using most of the components that we have seen so far. I won't go into details about all these machines. We will touch on them in a later episode, but very briefly I will go through this, what I'm demonstrating. The DC electric engine only powers the water pump. It will suck up water and supply the steam engines here and here. This steam engine runs on netherrack that I lit, and it will keep the engine at a good temperature, 135 VLSS. This one runs on lava, but it gets too hot, so I need these cooling fins on the side. These two are much more powerful than the DC electric engine, roughly 32 kilowatts of power, and we can see that with the transducer. Steam engine outputting 16 kilowatts, I meant, sorry. 16 kilowatts. And the whole purpose with these couplings is that I want to power the grinder. It is now receiving nothing, of course, since I have disconnected it, but we can check the info about the grinder. It is built with steel and shouldn't be a problem. And on the next page we can see required power 4 kilowatts and the torque is 128. Notice that the angular velocity, the radians per second, is nothing. So if this steam engine outputs 16 kilowatts, that is 4 times the power required to run it. But 512 radians per second is not really important, since we only know that we want the torque. If I connect this dynamometer, we see all the numbers. 32 Newton meters of torque and 512 radians per second. That 32, we need to multiply it with 4 to get up to 128. So I have connected this wooden 4:1 ratio gearbox, fill it with lubricant. And now we see that we have still 16 kilowatts and we have the 128 Newton meters of torque required, and the speed is 128 radians per second. However, it's the torque and the power that's important, and this grinder now runs fine, and you can see the operation time is roughly 24 seconds, and that is connected to the speed. We'll touch upon that in just a little bit. The purpose of this grinder is to grind canola seeds into lubricant. It will be output automatically in this lube hose and feed back to the gearbox. You can see that we have increased from the 2,000 millibuckets that we had. Now we have 2.2. That means 2.2 buckets. But we only needed 4 kilowatts, So that means that this steam engine can power 4 grinders or other machines, but I mean the power is enough. On this part I have divided with shaft junction, as you have seen before, wood shafts, and I have a steam engine here, and I will connect it now. 16 kilowatts. This shaft junction is set to 1 even split. That means that we have the 8 kilowatts of power and the torque is 16 Newton meters. So here I connected a 8-to-1 gearbox that will give us the 128 Newton meters of torque required. Now we have speed 64 radians per second. That's half of this one. Here we can see the operation time is 24 seconds and here is 26.9 seconds, so it's a slight increase. What that means for grinding a canola seed, I haven't really looked it up. From this part we still have 8 kilowatts of power. That's enough for 2 machines, 2 grinders, and have 2 exactly the same setups on this part. Another shaft junction divided up to 4 kilowatts to both. That's the lowest number that we can have. Now we have only 8 Newton meters of torque. That means that we need a 16-to-1 gearbox to boost it up to 128. But now the speed is only 32 radians per second. And the operation time is even higher. And this one looks exactly the same. So I guess you can compare running 2 grinders or this one. It's the same amount of power, but the speed will be different. I would almost guess that 2 is quicker, but I haven't really tried it. And with that, I think we are done for this episode. We now have gone through power, torque, speed, how to get it, or at least one example of how to get it. The handbook has a lot of power supplies: turbines, steam engine, gasoline, AC electric, performance, hydrokinetic, turbines. Yeah, there's a lot to go through, but the physics will follow us through the entire series, so that's why I spent extra much time on explaining that. We know how to divide the power or combine power from different sources. We could use 4 DC engines to get 4 kilowatts of power, and so on. And these machines, I'm sure we'll come back to them in a later episode. But for now, I think it's enough. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!